I recently had a discussion online with a young homosexual man, about homosexuality. He was advocating his case as a homosexual Christian, and I was advocating my case as an Orthodox traditional conservative Christian. And it made me think I needed to reiterate my position on human sexuality and where it comes from and how it comes about, and to detangle some of the unimportant and myths that people like to present. I fully believe that the human species is not focused to one specific gender or another, that our sexuality is much more complicated than that. And while we have genes, none of the genes are specifically homosexual or heterosexual genes. I believe we are given certain drives, certain natural drives, like the drive to reproduce would automatically lead you to a person of another gender. A drive for security, a drive for sexual satisfaction, a drive for company. These drives work together, and taken as a whole, the ideal that fills all of them is heterosexuality, and that is why society as a whole has fairly universally considered heterosexuality the standard relationship within any culture. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't force human sexuality to change by either cultural influence or personal changes or environments or conditions in your life. For example, one of the ones that people love to say in the homosexual community to advocate how they can be great fighters and whatnot is they always cite the shield partners or of ancient Bronze Age times, when they had cultures in which homosexuality or bisexuality was encouraged on the troops' part, so they would be lovers in the field as well as fighters, so they would team up in pairs and so on and so forth, and they were effective combatants. The problem with that theory when they use it that way is that it undermines their theory that it's genetic, because these nations did not have a recruitment drive to get membership to these fighter classes. They took young men and they made them members of this community, and they created an environment and encouragement that made them into these homosexual fighters. So clearly in that case you have an example of created homosexuals. People then say, well, if heterosexuality and homosexuality are choices, how can that take form in the sense of a heterosexual? Well, let's look at it. A heterosexual is typically born into a family with a mother and a father. Typically married couples who stay together, not divorced, produce heterosexual children. Why? Because they're first confronted with mother and father as an example of a sexual relationship. Then, as they grow up, they're confronted by society as a whole, which used to more heavily, but now less so, promote a mother and father type arrangement. Then you go on to the desire to have children, which will immediately drive them towards that goal. If they want to be a father or a mother, they're going to eventually choose a person of another gender. This does not mean that you can't have resistance to the culture, which can drive someone in the other direction. It can't mean that society can't force you in the other direction by attributing characteristics to one gender or another, characteristics you might have, and then suddenly in concluding that you also have to have the sexual parts of it. For example, if you like color, you like colorful things, well, you must be gay. You have a higher than normal pitched voice, you must be gay. You hold your body in a certain way, you must be gay. If society tells you you're gay enough, and women shun you, I got news for you. You will become gay. You will have it hard because you're not accepted in the other camp. So you'll find comfort in the camp that welcomes you, as opposed to the camp that says, oh, you're not really a member, you're actually part of them. And the same is reverse true. I fully believe that if you had a society that promoted homosexuality over heterosexuality and only had reproduction with artificial means, you would create a society of homosexuals, and the heterosexual would be the odd man out. Now, they say, what about God? What did God do? God created the two genders for a purpose. God created the two genders for a reason. While you may have whatever characteristics you have or desires you have, it does not negate what God created us with an ideal. We've been given free choice. We've been given choice to create ourselves in any way we want, to change our behaviors and etc. any way we want. That's free will. We've been given the choice. And with that choice comes the choice of our sexuality, be it heterosexual or be it homosexual, be it whatever kind of sexual, bisexual, fill in the gap. Thusly, we can choose to take God's ideal of man and woman, or we can choose to take something else, which makes us happy, whatever it might be. Now, the issue of genes. Now, this is the reason why ultimately the argument of and looking for genes for homosexuality is meaningless. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you're right. It's all gene-based. If you tell me that you have a gene for something, does this mean you are a slave to that gene? Let's say I have a gene that promotes alcoholism. Does this mean I might as well give up, let's start drinking? Or does it mean I just have to fight harder to resist that gene? Sexually speaking, the same deal goes. Let's say assume, for the sake of argument, that there's genes for these things, and you are driven to this behavior. Do you have any free will of your own? To say you have no choice in this matter is to say that you're a slave to these genes, if they exist, is to say that you are nothing more than a bunch of instincts with the trappings of intelligence wrapped around it. That your intelligence is more just a mask, the instincts which drive you which way, and this way or that way. I like to think human species is a lot more intelligent than that. That we're not just bestial creatures acting upon our genes with the intelligence just to flavor it to make it look like we're actually doing something other than act as robotic responses to genes. And I think once the finally message comes in, we'll find out that the truth of the matter is that we are indeed far more in control of our lives than we give ourselves credit for. And that while we may have genes, whatever these genes may be, or inherited behaviors or whatever, I don't know, that you will ultimately are still responsible for what you decide to do. Anyways, there you have it. This is the argument I had with the young man. It's predictable. I expect the standard responses. And there you have it. Thank you very much. In a separate video, I'm actually going to address the issue of the Christian church and religion relating to homosexuality and why there is such a problem between the two. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and God bless.